1901 to 1902. William James was dying from heart disease. He could barely stand, but he traveled to Scotland to deliver the Gifford lectures, the most important talks on religion ever given by a scientist. He said, "Religion is not about churches or doctrines. It's about the personal experiences that change lives." Those lectures became the Varieties of religious experience, the book that made atheists respect faith and believers embrace science. Tonight, in part 27, the Gifford lectures that shocked the world. How he studied conversions, mysticism, and sick souls, and the one idea that is still the #1 guide to spirituality 1 to 3 years later. Stay until the end, because what he said about mystical experiences will give you chills. James's Gifford Lectures and the Making of a Landmark Work. The Varieties of Religious Experience. As William James entered the later years of his life, one of his most important achievements was the completion of the Gifford Lectures, delivered in Edinburgh between 1901 and 1902. These lectures became the foundation for his most influential book on religion, The Varieties of Religious Experience. Page 3 of Chapter 6 explores the background of these lectures, their preparation, their themes, and their enormous impact on the study of religion and psychology. The invitation to deliver the Gifford Lectures was a great honor. These lectures were among the most prestigious platforms for discussing topics related to natural theology, philosophy of religion, and the human experience of the divine. Many great thinkers had spoken before James, but none approached the subject with his unique combination of psychological insight, philosophical depth, and respect for personal experience. Although James's health was already fragile, he accepted the invitation because he felt that this was an opportunity to bring together ideas he had been developing throughout his entire career. Preparing for the lectures was a difficult task. James struggled with fatigue and pain, and he often had to limit his work hours. But despite these challenges, he gathered a large collection of personal accounts of religious experiences, letters, diaries, autobiographies, and case studies. He read widely in theology, psychology, literature, and philosophy. His goal was not to defend or criticize religion, but to understand how religious experience arises, how it influences people, and why it holds such power in human life. James approached the subject from the perspective of a psychologist. He believed that the study of religion should begin with individual experience rather than with religious institutions or doctrines. For him, the essential question was not whether a specific religious claim was true, but how religious feelings shape the inner life of individuals. He saw religion as a deeply personal phenomenon, expressed not only in beliefs but also in emotions, habits, and transformative experiences. In the lectures, James divided religious experience into different categories, such as conversion, mysticism, saintliness, and the struggle between healthy-mindedness and the sick soul. He examined how different people respond to life's challenges, how they interpret suffering, and how they find meaning in moments of crisis or insight. Instead of giving a simple definition of religion, James described it as a rich and varied set of experiences that reveal the complexity of the human spirit. One of the most famous ideas from the lectures was James's distinction between the healthy-minded and the sick soul. Healthy-minded individuals tend to see the world as fundamentally good and trust that life is full of hope and possibility. In contrast, the sick soul experiences life as filled with struggle, suffering, and moral conflict. James argued that both perspectives are valid and that each reveals important truths about human life. These categories were not meant to judge people, but to help explain different spiritual attitudes and how they shape religious experience. James also gave great attention to mystical experiences. He described mysticism as profound moments of insight, unity, or peace that feel deeply real and often indescribable. He noted for key features of mystical states, they are ineffable. They involve insight or knowledge. They're temporary and they often come unexpectedly. James treated these experiences with seriousness and respect. He did not dismiss them as illusions, nor did he claim they were proofs of divine reality. Rather, he saw them as powerful, psychological events that reveal new possibilities of human consciousness. Another theme in the Gifford lectures was the practical effects of religion. James argued that the true test of religious belief lies in its consequences. A belief is meaningful if it changes a person's life for the better, if it inspires kindness, courage, discipline, or moral action. This pragmatic approach allowed James to evaluate religious experiences without becoming entangled in questions of theology or metaphysics. Instead of asking whether a belief is objectively true, he asked whether it brings value to human life. When James delivered the lectures in Edinburgh, they were met with great enthusiasm. Audiences admired his clarity, fairness, and compassion. Many people were struck by his open-minded approach, which allowed him to discuss religion with both scientific seriousness and deep human sympathy. He neither dismissed faith nor embraced it uncritically. Instead, he invited listeners to look at religious experience with curiosity and respect. After returning to the United States, James revised the lectures and prepared them for publication. The resulting book, The Varieties of Religious Experience, became an instant classic. It appealed to religious readers, philosophers, psychologists, and people searching for meaning in their own lives. The book offered a new way to talk about religion, one that focused on personal experience, emotional depth, and practical consequences rather than doctrinal disputes. The influence of the varieties of religious experience cannot be overstated. It helped establish the modern field of the psychology of religion. It also shaped the study of mysticism, spirituality, and human transformation. Many later thinkers, including theologians, psychologists, and philosophers, drew inspiration from James's open-minded, experiential approach. His method encouraged scholars to take subjective experience seriously as a source of knowledge about the human mind. Despite the success of the lectures and the book, James's health continued to decline. The effort had exhausted him, and he struggled with increasing pain and weakness. Yet he felt satisfied that he had completed one of his most important works. For James, the Gifford lectures were not only an academic achievement, but also a personal accomplishment, a way to express his deepest reflections on human life, struggle, faith, and meaning. Chapter 6 shows how the Gifford lectures allowed William James to bring together decades of thought into a single, powerful work. This period marks one of the high points of his intellectual life, demonstrating how even in illness, James continued to shape modern understanding of religion, psychology, and human experience. James's philosophy of religion, pluralism, freedom, and the will to believe. In the final years of William James's life, his ideas about religion became clearer, deeper, and more mature. Chapter 6 explores these later ideas, especially his views on pluralism, religious freedom, tolerance, and the meaning of his famous essay, The Will to Believe. These ideas shaped his legacy and helped redefine the way modern thinkers understand religious life and belief. By the time James delivered the Gifford lectures, he had already spent decades studying psychology, philosophy, and the nature of human experience. But religion remained a topic that touched him personally. Although he did not fully join any traditional religion, he believed that religious experience revealed something important about the human condition. In his later writings, he tried to understand how different traditions can all hold meaning, what it means to choose a belief, and why religious faith matters deeply to many people. One of James's most important ideas was religious pluralism. He believed that no single religion could claim a monopoly on truth. Instead, he argued that different spiritual traditions express Different aspects of the human search for meaning. People across the world experience hope, suffering, joy, fear, and mystery. These experiences lead them to create different religious systems, each with its own stories, rituals, and symbols. For James, these differences were not signs of confusion but signs of richness. He saw religion as a vast field of human creativity and insight, where many perspectives can coexist. This pluralistic view was very different from the dominant ideas of his time. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, many scholars believed that religion was either a mistake that would disappear as science advanced, or that one religion, usually Christianity, held the complete and final truth. James rejected both views. He insisted that religion was not simply about doctrines but about life, struggle, and personal transformation. Because human lives are so diverse, he believed that no single way of believing could ever fit everyone. Another important idea in James's later writings was freedom of belief. He argued that individuals have the right to choose beliefs that help them live meaningful and purposeful lives. In his famous essay, The Will to Believe, James defended the idea that sometimes it is rational and even necessary to make a leap of faith. He wrote this essay in response to critics who said that people should never believe anything without scientific proof. James replied that many of the most important decisions in life cannot wait for perfect evidence. Instead, people must sometimes choose without certainty, especially when the belief has the power to shape their future. James used simple examples to explain this idea. For instance, imagine you meet someone and feel that you might become close friends. If you wait for absolute proof before trusting them, the friendship may never form. Instead, you trust first without evidence, and the trust helps create the friendship. James argued that religious faith can work in a similar way. A person who believes in a hopeful, meaningful universe may find strength, courage, and peace that they would not have found otherwise. The belief, once chosen, helps create the conditions that make it true in the person's life. This does not mean James accepted every belief blindly. He emphasized that beliefs should be judged by their consequences. A belief that harms others, spreads hatred, or limits freedom is not valuable. A belief that brings kindness, hope, and moral strength is meaningful. This pragmatic approach helped James develop a balanced view of faith, one that respects religious experience without ignoring its risks. Another aspect of James's philosophy of religion was his defense of the individual religious life. He believed that faith is most meaningful when it comes from personal experience rather than simple obedience to authority. Organized religions play important roles, but James argued that the heart of religion lies in the inner life of individuals, their struggles, doubts, insights, and transformations. His writings often focus on personal stories because he saw the individual as the key to understanding the spiritual dimension of human life. During his later years, James also grew more interested in what he called overbeliefs. These are ideas that go beyond what science can prove but which many people find helpful or inspiring. Examples include belief in God, immortality, or a moral order in the universe. James argued that overbelief should not be dismissed simply because they cannot be demonstrated scientifically. Instead, they should be evaluated based on the role they play in a person's life. If an overbelief encourages someone to live with compassion, courage, and responsibility, then it has practical value. James's later writings also show his increasing interest in the unseen world. Although he remained cautious and critical, he was curious about experiences that seemed to go beyond normal consciousness, mystical visions, sudden insights, and experiences of unity. He did not claim these experiences proved the existence of the supernatural, but he believed they provided clues about hidden aspects of the human mind. His cautious but open-minded attitude set him apart from both religious dogmatists and strict materialists. In the final years of his life, James continued refining his ideas on religious experience. He believed that the human mind is capable of extraordinary depth and complexity. Religious feelings such as awe, gratitude, peace, or the sense of being connected to something greater were, in his view, powerful expressions of this depth. Instead of explaining them away, he encouraged people to explore them with honesty and curiosity. James's pluralistic and pragmatic approach influenced many fields. In psychology, his ideas helped shape the study of spiritual experience and human motivation. In philosophy, his writings on belief, freedom, and pluralism opened new paths for thinkers who wanted to explore religion without falling into dogmatism. In religious studies, the Varieties of Religious Experience continues to be one of the most widely read works, admired for its fairness, compassion, and insight. More importantly, his ideas helped create a more open and tolerant view of religion in modern society. He showed that religious belief does not have to conflict with scientific thinking, and that individual experience can be taken seriously without ignoring critical inquiry. His work encouraged people to appreciate the diversity of spiritual traditions and to respect the ways in which different beliefs help different individuals live meaningful lives. Chapter 6 shows how James's later philosophy built upon the themes he had explored throughout his career experience: freedom, individuality, and the search for meaning. These ideas formed the foundation of the legacy that he would leave to future generations. The Varieties of Religious Experience became the most influential book on religion ever written by a psychologist, but William James's own life was coming to an end. In Part 28, you'll discover his final months of pain and reflection, the heartbreaking goodbye to his family, and the one sentence on his grave that still saves lives every day. Part 28 tomorrow, 8 p.m. sharp. Subscribe plus bell on. The end is near.